And speaking of sanitizers and PPE, and particularly face masks that they're now looking to be compulsory around the country. Earlier this week, I spoke with the PS for Interior, that's Karanja Kibicho, on these measures, amongst others, including the isolation of the 4 counties and what the expected outcome of that is. Watch. What would it look like after 21 days? What would success of this measure look like? And if it doesn't work, what then?
We don't need to wait to learn, because we have very many examples in the world where this is happening. And therefore, every effort of every government is to try to break that exponential growth and flatten the curve.
Does flatten the curve look like? What would be the numbers that would satisfy the government that, you know, we're making progress in the right direction after the 21 days and that this period of restriction of movement has been successful?
That day, when we shall have, today we have 10, tomorrow we have 5, the other day we have 4, we have 3. It means that the curve is flattening. It's not exponentially growing. And then it tells us that if we do proper contact tracing, then we are able to nab all the people who have been in contact with the 4 and isolate them from the rest of the people, and therefore the growth continues declining. There isn't a number that we will give you and say when they are 2, then we are succeeding.
And what happens if the growth just continues, even after the 21 days, and if you identify other hotspots? Are we looking at a total lockdown of them?
That is a situation to avoid. But it is not a situation that is ruled out of Kenya. But if the curve in Nairobi does not flatten, then it means even if it has flattened to the spread outside Nairobi and it is not flattening within Nairobi, then it means further measures within Nairobi must be taken to ensure that we contain the spread.
When do we see distribution of free masks for Kenyans? Because many will say there is a cost that comes with this. Some people are paying 35 shillings, others are paying 50 shillings. And remember, it's a single use.
It will be irresponsible of a person to say, I will not buy nose mask at 35 bob. I'm waiting for government to give me, or I allow myself to get sick.
I don't think there's any Kenyan who will say they will not buy a mask. I think for some it really is a tough choice between buying a mask for the day and between feeding their families. And Bwana Kibicho, there's no guessing which one will win.
What will happen is this, the nose masks will be pushed to the lowest minimum cost. And this government also knows that they are vulnerable and people who are unable to even afford a meal when these measures are put in place. This is a caring government. It will do something.
So can you give some commitment as to...
It will do something to those people who are vulnerable and have no choice other than to surrender themselves to death.
Yeah.
This government can't allow its people to die like that.
Some would wonder how people who were in mandatory quarantine were allowed to party, were allowed to congregate in groups. Were they not being under a strict watch in these facilities, when in fact these mandatory quarantine facilities were put up because the government didn't trust that they were out there and would be able to actually abide by the directives? Yet now we hear of the same thing happening within the mandatory quarantine.
When someone is taken to, a grown-up is taken to a quarantine facility, they first of all must understand why are they taken there. It's because they want to be isolated for 14 days, and if they are found to be COVID negative, allowed to proceed. There can't be enough policemen for 47 million Kenyans, and there is some personal responsibility that is expected from every Kenyan.
You rightfully ask for the personal responsibility, but what is the responsibility on the part of government in a secure facility that we were made to understand was to ensure that they are following the rules to the letter?
After you are quarantined 1 person per room, and you choose to sneak out of your room when you think government isn't watching, to break the rules, it will be irresponsible and expecting too much. Because What is the responsibility of government? The government has taken effort of even identifying the place for you, ensuring that the medical personnel come visit you.
But then it's at their own cost, Bwana Kibicho, which for some of them was quite steep.
The cost of quarantining was out of choice. There was a whole range of facilities, and everyone, especially the ones who were traveling from outside, chose the one that fitted their pocket. And I think even if the cost is not friendly, doesn't warrant parting.
That being said, there's other people who are not parting, who now, as a result, have been asked to stay an extra 14 days. This will be at their cost. Are you not able to identify those who are partying and, you know, separate from those who are not? And fine, keep all of them for the extra 14 days. But there's others who are not the culprits, if you'd like to say, but are now being made to pay for an extra 14 days. Is there anything to sort of waive that for some of those that were not involved in the partying?
Or whether to pay or not, I think that's a discussion that people can engage in for the extra 14 days.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.